Thank you, Dr. Patil. Um, I am almost like a gate crasher today, in the sense I was told about this a little while ago, and I'm happy that I'm able to share my thoughts with some of you. Also, I should thank my friend, Dr. Vaibhav Sabnis, through who I got this particular opportunity. This morning, we will very briefly talk about what is the role of English, why we should learn English in India, and to some extent, what are the objectives of teaching English and how we can teach English. These are some of the points that I shall broadly be dealing with. I'll not make it technical at all. I'll make it as simple as possible. In the first place, let's look at English. Why is it called a second language and not a foreign language? This is a very well-known topic, and this has been discussed by a large number of people, and we have ample of examples. But the best example is given by a linguist called Martin Joos. I'll simply narrate what he said in the form of a short story, and that probably will make the distinction between is extremely disciplined. Every evening goes for a walk, and as she goes for a walk, the little kitten also walk with her. Fine. Now, when we walk with our children, the children don't keep pace with us. They either keep moving forward or they stay back, looking at some of the things like butterflies, flowers, fruit, picking up stones, etc. Now, when this happens, the mother is left behind or far ahead. So one day, these four little kittens saw something very interesting, and they ran far ahead of the mother. And when they ran far, far ahead of the mother, they saw a dog, a very ferocious dog. This dog began to bark at them, and the little kitten got frightened. And by then, the mother joined, and all the four kittens got round the four legs of the mother and said that they were quite frightened. The mother reassured the children and said, "Don't worry, I'll take care of this dog." And the cat looked at the dog in the face, and instead of saying meow, it started barking like a dog. When the dog heard the cat barking, the dog was taken aback by surprise. It almost got frightened and ran away. After the dog had ran quite some distance, the mother cat turned to the kittens and said, "This is why I have been insisting you should learn a second language." Now, what's the moral of the story? I am a cat. I know my language, and that's my mother tongue. Dog's barking is not my mother tongue, but I learn it and I stand to advantage. There are many advantages. So English in India is a second language. What does it mean? To me, English gives me some sort of a power. It gives me some sort of an extra strength. It gives me a better place in the society to survive. These are some of the things that we have to discuss. Now, let's forget the cat and the dog. They are not real. They are only hypothetical. Let's come to our real life. Now, English has spread so much in our country that we cannot even imagine its spread. The reason I'm saying this is, I'm not thinking of an urban center like Mumbai. So Mumbai, okay, there are facilities and people can learn English, etc. But think of smaller places. Even the smallest place has facilities like electricity, The smallest place has a supermarket. The smallest place has a bus flying into it from a distance. Probably many of the small places are also connected by trains. We use our telephones. Mobile phones are also there. Now we send our SMS. We have internet connectivity. We use email, etc. Now let's analyze all this. If you go to a supermarket and buy 10 things and you get a bill, what is the language in which the bill is generated? It's English. Means English has become a integral part of my life. I cannot wish away English. So to go to supermarket, I may buy things, but to know whether I have got the right change, whether I've got all the things that I have asked for, whether I'm billed only for those things that I have bought, I think I need to know English to some extent. Second, if I have to travel by bus or train. Now look at the language that is printed in which either a bus ticket or a train ticket is printed. Most of the information is given in English. Your point of origin, your destination, the fare you have to pay, the distance between the point of origin and your terminal. All these things are provided in English. Of course, of late, they are trying to make it bilingual, but that has not really caught up. Most places we find all this information only in English. To understand where I am going, to understand whether I'm shortchanged or overcharged, I think I have to know English even while traveling. Now go to a tourist place even in a small village. Probably many of the smaller places, Ajanta Ellora, let's think of Ajanta Ellora caves, which are slightly away from any township. Now, most of the brochures that you get for the tourists, they're all written in English. They are not written in Marathi. Of course, there are also Marathi brochures available, but the largest number of brochures are available in English. And in fact, I know from sure that most of these brochures are initially produced in English and later translated into the regional languages and other languages. This is something that's been happening in India. Now, if our electricity bill is in English, now in order to survive comfortably in our own little town, in our own little place, I think we need to know English, some English. I don't say we need to know a lot of English, but certain amount of English is absolutely essential in all our lives. This is the first point that I want to make. Second, there is a lot of English all around us. Now look at you while you are traveling. Look at the huge hoardings that you see that can advertise for soaps or cosmetics, clothings, jewelry, or even essential parts of your motor cars like tires, etc. Now, most of these ads are in English. They are not in the regional languages. Almost all on the highway, you find most of these ads only in English. Now, what do these ads stand for? Do they help me? Are they useful to me? I think if you ask a question like this, ads are there only to attract your attention. And if these products are everyday useful products like soaps and cosmetics, etc., I think I need to know a little more about them, why I should use them, who are the people who are promoting them, etc. And to know them, I need to know some English. And think of the newspapers that are there. Most of at least 50% of the newspapers that are printed in India are in English. More than 60% of the media time on television is taken away by English. Now, if all these things happen in English, now to give adequate exposure to our learners to learn English is not very difficult. See, we know that language can be best learned through what is called exposure. And media is one of the easiest resources that we have to give exposure to our learners. And this is quality language. In fact, most of our private channels on the television, they have good anchors, they have good news reporters, and they do provide excellent samples of English use, both in terms of pronunciation, in terms of syntax, in terms of vocabulary, etc. And they are good models. We can suggest to our learners that watching news on television is an excellent source. Of course, radio is a better source. I'm not going to talk about radio right now. Then there is also English that's available in the form of a large number of glossy magazines that we have, which have plenty of good material to read. There are excellent stories that are based on contemporary social issues. There are stories based on a variety of other uh, problems that are around us. Maybe, for example, already there are quite a few stories that are based on corona, the problems of containment, the problems of quarantine. All these stories are available in many of the weekend magazines. It could be newspapers, it could be glossy magazines, it could be week, it could be much of this provides us with excellent material, reading material, for our learners to read and understand English. This is another aspect. The third aspect that I would like to talk about is, okay, our learners have to learn English. Why should they learn English? Is it because they can go abroad and work? Or is it because they can survive here in India and get better jobs? I would vote for the second option. Means I don't need to learn English to go abroad. Maybe if I go abroad, I can still feel comfortable, but the objective of learning English is certainly not to go abroad and interact with people whose mother tongue is English. I would like to stay in my society. I would like to stay home. I would like to have a better opportunity. Now, this is something that I have often found while I have sat on selection committee meetings. When we sit on a selection committee meeting, probably this has happened at the school teaching assistants level. These interviews were for commonly for almost all the teachers. So if there is a teacher who has to be appointed for teaching, let's say, a subject like Telugu in my state, Telugu is the mother tongue. If there are two candidates who are almost equal in all their qualification, a person who has a slightly better knowledge of English is preferred to somebody who can be otherwise. Okay, A has a better knowledge of English, B has lesser knowledge of English. Otherwise, the qualifications and the academic records, everything are equal for both of them. In such a case, the person with some knowledge of English is preferred. I don't know why this happens, but this has happened time and again, and I can vouch for this. Now, this is something that's happening almost all over the country. I'm not very sure, but I cannot say this. But this is something that's truly amazing. Means somebody with some knowledge of English is preferred even for a job where he or she may not necessarily have to use English. So in other words, English has become a language of prestige in India, and that's one of the functions of English as a second language. This is okay. English is around us. English provides us with a better job. But in schools and colleges, why should we teach English? Let's also look at that in a slightly different manner. Now, there is a sort of a belief that if we send our children to English medium schools, they learn English better because English is taught better. In fact, that's not true at all. In an English medium school, a child learns English better because all other subjects are taught in English. That's exactly the reason. In other words, when the child learns solving problems in mathematics, arithmetic in English, when the child studies social studies in English, when the child studies basic sciences in English, the child has a purpose for learning English. Means, I'll give you a concrete example. I have a chapter on Mughal Emperor Akbar in my history class. I also have a story about Akbar in my English textbook. Both are exactly the content of the two in a book in history and in my English book. They are not different, but they are identical. So my history class, I have my history period, and next class is English class. Now in my history class, I have studied Akbar, and my teacher asks me a question like, who is Akbar's father? And as a student, I simply use one word answer called Humayun. And my teacher, history teacher, appreciates my answer and praises me. I feel extremely happy. The following class is English, and my English teacher, incidentally, happens to teach exactly the same lesson, Akbar, and asks me the same question, who is Akbar's father? With the memory of my previous class, I very enthusiastically stand up and shout, Humayun. And my English teacher says, stupid, why can't you give the answer in full sentence? Now, what is happening here? In my English class, I'm moving away from content to structure. Now, what is more important? Is it the content, or let me put it as meaning, or is it the structure? Structure may be totally useless as far as communication is concerned. In fact, we can communicate a lot without grammar. I don't want to give examples of that. So English teachers unnecessarily forget that how much more meaning is important in comparison with grammar, and focus a lot more on grammar rather than on meaning. This is exactly what's been happening for a long time, till almost, I would say, 1989, 1990, when CBSE took up a major experiment called Interactive in English and came out with two brilliant books called Interact in English 1 and Interact in English 2. That's when sort of there was a shift in paradigm. There was a paradigm shift in the teaching of English. We started looking at English as task-based teaching, and we moved away from content-based teaching to task-based teaching. And since then, English has had a very different. Now, but still, there are a large number of schools where teachers feel that teaching grammar is much, much, much more important than teaching language as part of meaning, language as part of skills, providing a good command of English so that a child can converse in English, child can write a small note in English without making some errors. This is something that we have to think of. Okay, in that sense, what I'd say is English should largely be considered as a service language. What does service language mean? If I learn English, is it possible for me to understand I'm looking at it from college point of view, a tertiary point of view. Okay, in my degree class, I don't have to study only English, but I have to study several other subjects. It could be economics, it could be commerce, it could be history, it could be political science, it could be physics, it could be chemistry, it could be mathematics, it could be any of these subjects. Now, all these subjects have to be taught in English. And if with some knowledge of English that I have, it should be possible for me to understand these subjects better and respond to the questions that my teacher asks in a better way, and organize my thought in such a way that my grades in other subjects become better and not necessarily English. Okay, so English to that extent is called a service language. Can English help me score better marks in my physics, in my chemistry? So now think of all these intermediate students. That's a crucial stage in a learner's life, because that's almost like a threshold. Once I get out of my intermediate, I get into a professional course. And this getting into professional courses depends on the scores that I have as far as my intermediate marks are concerned. And in intermediate, I neglect English and focus only on my content subjects. And it's quite possible that I'm not able to understand my content subjects without a proper knowledge of English. I'll just give you a small illustration. Here is my physics text. And in my physics text, I'm taught about how a clock loses or gains time depending on the length of the pendulum. So there is a problem like this. In my house, there is a clock. And this clock is an old clock which works on a pendulum. The pendulum is made of copper. The length of the pendulum is 10 centimeters. In my town, in summer, the temperature rises by about 20 degrees. Okay, normally in winter it's about 30 degrees, and in summer it can go up to 46, 47, 48 degrees, or that there is a considerable difference in temperature between winter and summer. So in summer, the coefficient of expansion of copper is X. So if that is the case, how much time does my clock lose? This is the problem. Now, is this problem physics or is this problem English? Now, unless the learner reads the problem in English, understands it properly, and is able to analyze it for a large number of variables. Okay, now there is a pendulum. The pendulum is made of copper. This coefficient of expansion of copper is X. The number of the degrees by which the temperature rises is so much. So if that is the case, how much is the length of the pendulum? What is the difference in the length of the pendulum? And if that is the case, what is the difference in its oscillation? All these things the learner has to analyze and understand, and this can happen only and only if my learner knows English. Therefore, I call English as a service subject, not as a content subject. So even if my learner does not get good marks in English, it doesn't matter. But that does not mean that he can ignore English, but he should use the knowledge of English that he has gained in English class to apply to understanding the subjects and score better marks in the subject. Okay, this is what is essential. This is what is essential. If that is the case, how do we go about teaching English, or what are the changes that we can bring about in our teaching of English? The first and foremost thing that we have to do is we have to bring about a change in what is called our curriculum. Okay, curriculum is a huge discipline. I will not again go into all the details of the curriculum, but I'll just mention one small thing. Recently, the UGC has set up a committee. Of course, it's 2.5 years old, and the undergraduate curriculum is ready. It's awaiting the approval to be released and implemented in all the universities. This is called Learning Outcome Based Curriculum Framework, LOCF. In other words, it's called LOCF, Learning Outcome Based Curriculum Framework. We have already framed the curriculum for undergraduate courses. Now, this one brings back a lot of liberal education. So, if I am studying my English, is it necessary that I should get all the texts from literature, or is it possible for me to get the relevant texts from other disciplines? It should be possible for me to get text from various disciplines. For example, if there is a, okay, again, let me give a concrete example. If Stephen Hawking's Brief History of Time, which is an exposition of physics, trigonometry, and astronomy, and if I can take a passage out of A Brief History of Time and use it for language teaching, would it be appropriate? That's the question that we have to ask. Or is it necessary for us to think of short stories and poems, or can we think of a good passage from geography? For example, National Geographic, a journal like National Geographic, produces excellent articles on wildlife and the different types of terrain that exist in various parts of the world. Can we use that as part of our text? Can we exploit these texts? There are quite a few aspects of our culture that can be incorporated. All these things can be thought of when we think of a new curriculum and when we think of a new text. For example, a textbook that has a good, okay, we are not discounting literature. There can be a few pieces from literature, a couple of stories, a couple of essays, a couple of poems, along with a good essay on science, a good essay from history, a good essay from philosophy, a good essay from economics, so that this gives my learner a wider exposure, such a wider exposure that the learner can cope with any of the text. Why should this happen? Each discipline has its own discourse. Again, discourse, I simply simplify it in terms of style. Each discipline has its own style. A scientific article is not written exactly the way an article in economics is written. An article in economics is not written the way an article in history is written. My learner, whose proficiency in English should increase, should be familiar with all discourses at the basic stage, and later maybe my learner can choose one or two of these disciplines for his personal improvement, personal career. This is something that should happen. Or our textbook, the curriculum, which has the objective of providing general proficiency in English, should also cater to a textbook, production of a textbook, which is not simply literature based, but which is some sort of a collection of all genres of literature, all disciplines, essays from writings from all possible disciplines. And over a period of time, my learner should be introduced to different types of writing from different disciplines. If this happens, the learner automatically gets motivated. Oh, English is not really Shakespeare. English is not really Charles Dickens. English is not really this, but English also means life. English is something that is useful to me. English is something that helps me to express. English is like my mother tongue. If in my mother tongue, I can express most of my needs, it should be possible for me to express all my needs in English as well. If this confidence is given to the learner automatically gets motivated and perhaps starts learning English. Now, last point I want to make in this connection is, if I have a textbook like this, how do I teach this? Now, do I teach it in a very conventional way, like I'm doing now, that I'm just giving a talk. Is it possible for me to make my teaching as interactive as possible? Is it possible for me to to use a variety of media in order to use teach English? Now I'll just give you another example. Okay, I have a beautiful lesson which deals with some of the important tourist places in India. Let's imagine we have a large number of tourist places in India. Now, ICT today has given us a fund of tools, a huge inventory of tools called Web2 tools. I'm again, the number of Web2 tools that are available for our use are enormous, but I'll just take one example. Let's think of a tool like Padlet. What is a Padlet? Padlet is a wall I can create on the system. I can choose the design of my Padlet, and on this wall, I can paste or I can post any number of texts or any number of videos. Now, instead of talking about Taj Mahal or what we call Bibi Ka Maqbara in Aurangabad, and if there is a comparative study between Taj Mahal and Bibi Ka Maqbara in Aurangabad, instead of going to what is given in the text, can I get a brochure from Aurangabad? Can I get a brochure from Agra? Put both these brochures on my Padlet and convert my entire reading class into a flipped classroom. Both these brochures are posted on the Padlet wall 2 days before the time I have to take the class. And there is also an instruction given to my learners to go through this and make a comparative study and come up with various points. And if they can do that, and even before they come to the class, they can post their views on the Padlet for others. They can share it with others. And I can come back to the class, and instead of reading the whole text, I can just raise a few questions and develop a debate or discussion in my class, which is going to be much more useful. Then the students will get an idea, okay, it's not necessary that I should answer the questions that are there in the text. I have a reason to give my opinion and give my opinion in the way that I want to give. And it's not necessary that I have to reproduce a sentence in the text. There is much more learning that can happen outside the text as it can happen in any living language. This is the idea that we have to generate in our learners. I have just given one example, but looking at the range of topics that we discuss in our classroom, we can have a large number of techniques. We can use a large number of Web2 tools. We can also use different strategies. I'll conclude with one more example. There is something called group reading that we can do as far as reading comprehension is concerned. Okay, I'm in a rural area. I don't have technological support. I cannot use Padlet. I cannot use a computer. All these things are fine. Okay, but I have my classroom, and in my classroom there are 80 students, 90 students, and I have to deal with all these 90 students as a single teacher. Is it still possible? Now let's look at it. I have a story like, let's again take one of the popular stories that is anthologized in most of our English textbooks, a story like The Gift of Magi, O. Henry's Gift of Magi. If I have this story, in my class there are 90 students, which is a normal thing in the intermediate undergraduate courses. Now I'll divide this class into 3 groups of 30 each, A, B, and C. Now I will also divide my story, Gift of Magi, into 3 parts. Like, okay, first Stella looks at how much money she has and she gets worried. So she counts and counts and counts on money. She has $1.84 or whatever. I don't remember the details. Up to that, I'll make it as part A. Then from there up to this condition in which Jim lives is the second part. I'll call it part B. And the last part is both of them buy gifts. The Jim sells his watch and buys a few hair clips, and Della cuts her hair and buys a golden watch strap. Both, and that's the last part. Okay, so group, and that part I call C. So there are three groups: 1, 2, and 3. Group 1 reads part A. Group 2 reads part B. Group C reads part. Group 3 reads part C, and they read on their own. They don't listen to the teacher. The teacher motivates them why they should read, etc., and also gives an instruction that each group should come up with 4 questions on the part that they have read. And after they have discussed among themselves, okay, these 30 people, they're once again divided into 10 groups of 3 each. The smaller groups of 3 each, and there are 10 groups. And in each group there will be 10, so there will be totally 30 groups of 3 people each. So 3 of them together read the portion that is assigned to them and come up with 4 questions. And for this, about 10 minutes time is sufficient. The teacher goes around, looks at the questions and looks at the structure of the questions and can help them formulate the questions properly or build the questions properly, the relevance of the questions, grammaticality of the questions, the wording, and all these things can. After they have finished this work of framing the questions, the teacher allows the whole group to read the entire lesson very, very quickly. Then he asks group A to ask the first question to group B, and then the second question to group C, and similarly there will be questions will be exchanged. Means when the teacher makes the students responsible for their own reading, when the teacher makes the students responsible for framing their own questions, when the teacher makes students responsible for assessing the correctness of the responses, I think the students will feel their self-esteem gets increased, gets better, and the reading also will improve. And this experiment has been quite a bit of a success. This is called a group reading exercise, and at the end of it, the teacher can give what is called a shadow summary, which simply means I summarize the whole story in about 10 to 12 sentences, and in between I'll introduce some false sentences that don't fit into the summary, which don't subscribe to the theme of the story. The class will identify these distractors and replace them with correct stories. So this will take care of reading, speaking, listening, and writing. This is some sort of a possibility. I'm just giving you 2 of the many possibilities. So I'll just conclude with a summary. English in India is definitely a second language, which is all around us, which gives us better opportunities and lots and lot more of scope to get jobs, etc. English is all around us, and therefore there is adequate exposure that is available to us through various sources, so we can learn English fairly easily. And English is not learned for the sake of English, but English is learned for the sake of application or understanding other subjects and helping us move forward. And if all this has to happen, our curriculum has to bring about a few reforms and consider English as a service language. And if the curriculum changes, the shape of the textbook also should change. And with the shape of the textbook, I think our methodology should also undergo a bit of modification. With this, I think there is a bright future for English language teachers and English language teaching as far as our country is concerned. thank you very much for this opportunity. If there are some questions, maybe I could respond to them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Saab. Now I request the honorable participants on Zoom, YouTube, if they have some questions for Dr. Mohan Raj sir, they can ask it or either text it.
Yeah. At the chat box, there are no questions on the chat box. I just saw.
Actually, chat box has been disabled, sir.
Oh, it's been disabled. Okay, right.
Yeah, because people start posting anything, right, from good morning to their introduction and so many things. Sir, thanks for a very insightful presentation.
Thank you.
Not exactly a question, but that must be a doubt in many minds. That's why I'm asking this question on behalf of so many like me. What exactly is the difference between the academic English and the general English, and how should we try to improve that?
Okay. Now, let me take an illustration and say it. General English is... Sorry? General English is, okay, there is a homemaker. And a homemaker probably wants to do a bit of shopping and maintain her contacts with her husband's colleagues or her own friends, or they have a kitty party, etc., where there are certain etiquettes and social principles that she has to observe. So she need not discuss a political issue. She need not discuss a content subject. She does not need to have attend an office meeting, etc. In such a case, it is some sort of a general English. It's for general communication. Academic English, on the other hand, is oriented to appreciating and understanding content subjects. For example, a student of engineering, if he cannot understand the problems in physics or problems in resolving a formula or an equation in chemistry, or understanding a problem in mathematics, then he has some lapses or he has some shortcomings, because these use certain technical expressions. I wouldn't call them jargon, but they are technical expressions. And the technical expressions can have a special meaning. And this is something that I have to teach as far as academic English is concerned. Therefore, we have the large number of ESP courses like English for doctors, English for nurses, English for engineers, all these things. Going back in history, I think this awareness came about way back in 1965 when two people called Ewer and Lato came up with the first book on English for science and technology. Of course, that's a very, very basic book. But today, after Widdowson worked, what is called English in Focus, I think ESP has taken a very, very different shape. Academic English largely caters to a discipline, whereas general English is not discipline specific. That's the idea.
Thank you very much,
Dr. Saab?
Yeah, Haji.
As you are mainly associated with English and Foreign Language University, which has the primary role to teach and spread English in India. If there are any other courses where other stream teachers like science and commerce could join to improve their English at IPLU or at present institute where you are working? So will you focus some light on it that they can enroll or join it?
No, IPLU used to have, I don't know, because I retired almost 4 years ago. I have retired. I am no longer in service. But we used to have special courses for college teachers of largely English and also of different disciplines. But now most of the teacher training courses have been stopped. I'm not aware of the academic staff colleges should take over this particular responsibility. Most of that now academic staff colleges are also renamed. I think they are called Institutes of Human Resource Development. Many universities have that. I think this Ambedkar University in Aurangabad has an academic staff college. I think they are the ones who have to do. FLU is not doing any of these things now. Right now, there are no courses in FLU. Dr. Shashi Deshpande was the coordinator there in Aurangabad. I don't know if he continues to be the coordinator still.
Dr. Sabnis, sir, any other question?
Yes, sir. Actually, I'm very much eager to learn many things from Professor Dr. Mohan Raj, sir. That's why.
So
Sir,
we can.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thanks for this, sir. Sir, in order to improve the academic writing or English of students and even faculty, what should we include exactly in the curriculum?
Yeah. Now, this is a question that has been asked several times. Now, my take on this, in fact, I'll again tell you how we were taught. We were taught by a person called Alan Moller, a British scholar. Now, he simply gave us 2 or 3 small tips. One, he said, the best way of expression is using simple sentence. Now, he had a very funny way of making us write simple sentences. He said he would give us an assignment and he would say that no sentence should be more than 8 words long. At best, it could be 10 words. And if we exceeded it by 10 words, he would charge us, he would penalize us with 10 paise for every extra word in the sentence. This was because those days we had the system called Telegram. And in Telegram, for every extra word, we had to pay 10 paise. That's all. Of course, at the end of it, at the end of the week, all the 10 paises he collected, we would all go to the canteen and have our samosa and tea. That's a different matter. So he made us write very, very simple sentences and simple sentences that can communicate very well. The second thing he said was how to organize these sentences in paragraphs. How there has to be some sort of a unity and coherence within each paragraph. And between the paragraph, we have to build proper links. So he said, look, whatever writing you do, whether it is academic or non-academic, etc., even if it is a thesis, right, starting from a simple letter to the thesis, it believes in the same principle. Write simple sentences and help build your paragraph. Because if you analyze any genre of writing, it boils down to this. Then the third point he mentioned was, don't write unless you are very sure you can write, for which he made us develop flowcharts. For every topic that he gave, he had to first give a flowchart, and within the flowchart, there was a particular design that he gave, how the main point can be divided into 3 or 4 subpoints, and each subpoint can have sub-points. So this gave us the idea of what can go into a paragraph, how the paragraphs can be linked, and how all the paragraphs can be put in the form of a topic. And once all these paragraphs were written, he said, finally, the last thing you have to write is the introduction, not the first thing. That's something that he taught. So academic writing builds on this particular principle. Are you able to analyze your topic? Okay. Now we have fancy labels like web charts and all those things. So they're good, but they are all the same thing. Instead of flow chart, you can have a web chart. Brainstorm, you can brainstorm. If I have all this, do I know what my topic is? Do I know how many paragraphs can go into this? What each paragraph should have? Which should be the first paragraph? Which should be the second paragraph? Which should be the third paragraph? And finally, if this is my essay, what type of an introduction should it have? This is something that we were taught, and I still follow the same principle, and I believe in that. I believe that's the gist of academic writing. I think Professor Monipalli has come out with a book on academic writing. He also mentions exactly the same principles in his book, because he was also taught by Alan Moeller.
So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Saab. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Now it's a time for vote of thanks. Today I pay my special thanks to Dr. Mohan Raj sir for his timely invitation and giving such nice session to our participants in a very simple and lucid language and very systematically that the use of academic English. As you know, dear participants, today's pre-engaged lecture was Dr. Ghansham, who is a state RUSA project director at the government of Chhattisgarh. But he was timely called meeting, and Dr. Mohan Raj accepted our timely invitation and guided us and give a very simple language lecture. So I am very thankful to Dr. Mohan Raj sir. However, Dr. Ghansham has promised us to meet once again for the webinar. Last, I pay very my special thanks and would like to remain with mercy and
Don't worry, चलो जो
Yeah.